Beautiful words. He says that this means that every human being is in an act of selling and trading and making efforts constantly. Meaning they're competing in making more sales than the other, and they're competing in getting ahead from the other. This is what they're lost in. And if you remember, this is very similar to what we talked about in At-Takathur. His tafsir of this word is very similar to what we already read in At-Takathur. وَصَرَفَ الْأَعْمَارِ فِي أَعْمَالِ الدُّنْيَا. And he exhausts his ages. By a'mar, he's referring to his age, meaning youth is one age, maturity is one age, middle age is one age, then old age and senility. He exhausts all of his time, his life's opportunities in the works of dunya, لَفِي نُقْص, and all of them that have been exhausted. وَصَرْفُ أَعْمَارٍ فِي أَعْمَالِ الدُّنْيا لَفِي نُقْص. They are all in loss. وَضَلَالٍ, and in waste. عَنِ الْحَقِّ حَتَّى يَمُوتٍ, and he's misled from the truth until he dies, and then he wakes up. وَقِيلَ الْمُرَادْ بِالْإِنسَانِ الْكَافِرِ. We talked about this before, but it's coming up directly from the Mufassirun now. It has also been said that the insan in this surah refers to the kafir. That the meaning of al-insan, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, some have understood this as إِنَّ الْكَافِرَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. وَقِيلَ جَمَاعَةٌ مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ. It's also been said it's a group from the kuffar, وَهُمُ الْوَلِيدْ بن المغيرة والعاص بن وائل والأسود بن عبد المطلب بن أسد والأول الأولى. Others say that no, this is a group from the kuffar specifically in the life of the Prophet, like Walid ibn Mughira, Aas ibn Wa'il, Aswad bin Abdul Muttalib. These are the kinds of individuals, la'anahumullah, that are being referred to in this surah. But even Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah says, but the first meaning is preferred among these who say they are kuffar. The ones who generally refer to the kuffar is the preferred meaning. But then even that has a criticism which we'll get to. وَقَالَ الْأَخْفَشْ فِي خُسْرٍ في halaka. Al-Akhfash rahimahullah says, when Allah says fi khusr, he is in loss, what he means by that is he is in destruction. Halaka. Halak actually literally means violent death. There's maut, that's death. But halak is violent death, like a death in a car accident or a vicious kind of death. So he's setting himself up for this vicious end. وَقَالَ الْفَرَّاء عُقُوبَةً. And Farra says that this is a terrible ending. Uquba means a consequence, an ending that is scary for others to watch. In other words, one's end, that when other people see this, I don't want to end up like that. And you use his uquba as an example among yourselves. You say, you remember what happened to him? You don't want to go down that road, that kind of thing. So this is uquba. Then Ibn Zayd rahimahullah, he says, lafi shar. Lafi khusr here implies lafi shar, that he is immersed in evil. Because the ultimate loss of the human being is his engrossment in evil deeds. We read something from Ash-Shaqiqi rahimahullah. لَفْظَ الْإِنسَانِ وَإِنْ كَانَ مُنْفَرِدًا فَإِنَّ أَلْفِهِ جُعِلَتْهُ لِلْجِنْسِ. The word al-insan, even though it's singular, it has been used for all humanity, generally speaking. Then we come to a very, very important comment that is made by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and it's so powerful that's even quoted by Mufti Muhammad Shafi' in his Urdu tafsir, Ma'arif al-Quran. The translation of which is also available in English. It's not the best English, so if you can read Urdu, read the Urdu tafsir, Ma'arif al-Quran. But those of you who don't have access to that language, at least something of the English is available. What is this comment that is so beautiful that I'm referring to by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah? He says that humanity is kept from accepting reality, accepting the truth of this deen by two obstacles. There are two obstacles that keep human beings from saving themselves. Now, what is the path to save yourself? There are two things. Those are, in the Quran we find الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا wa. What's after what? عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. This is what we find all over the Quran, right? They believe and they act. They believe and they act. Even though we haven't talked in detail what Iman is Allah referring to, what righteous deed is Allah referring to. We're just using them as terms, as tags and phrases right now. But generally, this is the path to salvation. This is the path to save yourself and be successful in the akhirah. The first step, Iman. The second step, action. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah argues there are two obstacles before the people that keep them from Iman and action. What are those two obstacles? He calls them shubuhat and shahawat. Shubuhat and shahawat. What does that mean? Shubuhat means doubts. Shahawat means temptations, desires. So he says the two things that keep people from accepting the truth are doubts and temptations. What does he mean by that? You see, when you ask someone to accept this deen, you're asking them to give up a lot of things. You're asking them really to give up a lot of things. I had a friend in college, big guy, really loved football, And you used to talk about Islam all the time. And I'd say, man, why don't you just accept Islam? I can't give up that pork, man. I just can't give it up. That's some good stuff. What's his obstacle? He's not in doubt. His obstacle is not doubt. He's convinced this is good. His obstacle is his temptation. Another one says, I can't give up the life of partying. I can't give up the women. I can't give up the clubs. I can't give up the drugs. I can't give up this or that or the other. These are desires. On the one hand, there's a person who says, this is right, but I cannot live by this because the gravitational pull of temptation is just too strong for me. This is one problem. Here's another problem. Here's a person who doesn't accept, what this is because he's not sure if this is the truth. They'll say, how do you know yours is the only right religion? There are so many religions out there. What about them? What about all those people? They're going to just go to hell? That's what you believe? I can't accept that. I'm not sure how can there be just one right way? No, if there was just one right way, why wouldn't everybody just follow it? These kinds of questions come in this person's mind. And they fall into what? Doubt. This is the root of doubt. Either one of these things will keep you from the deen. Either one of these things. And by the way, most people, the problem is in doubt. Most people, the problem is temptations. And then when they fall into their temptations, shaitan comes in and adds a new virus, which is doubt. So when you call them to the deen, they say, I am in doubt, but the real problem wasn't doubt. What was it? The temptations. So in other words, there's a psychological problem and there's an intellectual problem. You could also call it a spiritual problem, a problem of the heart, which is temptation. There's an intellectual problem, a problem of the mind, which is doubt. Most people that give the excuse of the intellectual doubt, actually that's not true. That's a cover, that's a facade. The real problem is their hearts have desires. And they don't want to give up their desires, and to cover that up, they make all kinds of intellectual excuses. And when you get rid of all of them, the truth comes out that it was really their desire. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. This is his, sad state that he doesn't want to come out of. Now, why mention this in the midst of this surah? You see, at the end, Allah says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, but He mentioned two more things, didn't He? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah argues, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Truth is the removal of what? Doubt. Truth is the weapon against doubt. So what tawasi bil-haq gets rid of one obstacle. And what was the other obstacle? Shahawat, temptations, desires. To fight against those desires, knowing the truth is not enough, what must you have? The strength to not fall into them. The strength to hold back, to control yourself. Where does that come from? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You see how beautifully those two obstacles that keep people from iman and a'mal as-salihah, they are mentioned in وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. This is the comment that I felt was very, very important for us to understand. Now we're going to look at some other commentary. I'm going to go just through my notes so I don't miss anything, inshallah ta'ala. The first comment just about this ayah. You see, in these two ayat, Allah Azza wa Jalla has depicted a very powerful reality. And one element of that is that human beings are so preoccupied with their personal problems. Allah says human beings are in loss, right? But it's, we're thinking about the hellfire and the day of judgment and all of that. But even the way Allah created the human being in this earth, before He has also said, we've already studied, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created the human being, no doubt, in toil, in labor. Even the kafir has to work hard. He's got to, work 40 hours, 50 hours to get a paycheck and barely survive, barely make an income. That's their state too. It's not easy for anyone. So even, and there are people in the world who are Muslim or non-Muslim that barely get food to eat, or they see their